How's it going, guys? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to SeaBed. Last time we did some jumping around with perspective a little bit, got a lot of Dr. Narasaki's point of view, and now we're back to Sachiko. Because we started off in Takiko's, kind of wrapped up, I guess, that part of her memory. And instead of having a chapter change when we went back to Sachiko's world, we just did a transition through Narasaki reading a journal telling a story that we were looking at about Takiko's memory, and then transitioned back into Sachiko, which I have to say was very fluid in its nature. It's kind of nice to see that we don't have to have a chapter intercept every time we shift positions. And I'm guessing that's going to become a bigger theme as we start to see how the two position stories are more related. So interesting. I'm gonna find out. Still not entirely sure if everyone's real or not. Like, for instance, I'm wondering now. I come up with all these theories. They're all dumb. The latest theory now is that I'm not sure about how Takiko and Sachiko are connected yet, but I'm starting to think that Dr. Narasaki is kind of not real. Like, maybe she is a real person, but that Sachiko is like evolving her mental landscapes from hallucinations to multiple personalities, where part of me is thinking that Dr. Narasaki is just in her head, and like when we see them talking, it's actually Sachiko talking, but in the voice of a different personality. I don't know. It might be a bit of a shock and a little odd, but at the same time, no, that doesn't quite work. Asana talked about Narasaki not like she was Sachiko. Or maybe, I don't know. I'm grasping at straws. I kind of gave up last time. I'm still kind of blah. But anyway, this time we're going to see whatever the mysteries we're going to have. I have no clue where to expect this to go. We'll have to find out together. The comment I want to highlight today, the three of you guys commented, you talked a lot about my comments about there's a woman in the workplace and such. I want to highlight one that kind of touched on the history a little bit. I'm not going to read the whole comment just because I want to focus on this one paragraph by Jake, who said, "We're going to Japan is probably even more traditional than you imagine with women in the workplace. Although the traditions aren't exactly Western traditions, there's parallels too. In fact, it's a social norm that a working woman will leave her job on marriage to become a stay-at-home wife, at least for some years, if not permanently. I know some people who have done just that. Of course, there's a huge pressure on the husband to provide for the family, which is part of the whole culture where a man is out to work from dusk till dawn and the wife manages all the finances, maybe even grants the man an allowance to use," which, by the way, is a smart move. I mean, maybe there's a stigma associated with it, but ultimately both people should be on an allowance where you don't just spend money as you want to, because you're a responsible adult who has to provide for the family. And that responsibility falls on the person who's at home to make sure that they handle their finances correctly for the household, and the person who's out and about. I imagine there's a lot of angry fights that come about because husbands will, instead of going straight home, will go out and go drinking with friends and spend a lot of money on alcohol and come home drunk. I imagine that's a terrible, that happens more often than we'd like. But you continue on, says it can definitely just go too far. The point that there's very little communication between husband and wife. And there's the thing about couples divorcing when the man retires and they spend time together for the first time in decades. It turns out they don't even like each other anymore. Yeah, that's insane. I don't know. Definitely a cultural difference between at least my culture in the United States and in Japan, where it seems like, from what I understand, it's almost like a duty that, if you want to be successful in your career, you have to show dedication, and better dedication than your fellows, which means you work dusk till dawn, breaking your back and only getting some few days off, if that. Let's just know, here we fight kicking and screaming for all of our days off. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm very happy that I have the opportunity to spend time with my wife. I'm glad that she has a successful career, and I hope to find my own career eventually, but I'm not opposed to that. But I'm also really happy that she can have a successful career that can provide for us, and I still get to see her, and spend time with her. Because that'd be really sad to feel like you don't even know your spouse anymore. That's crazy. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get right into this. This episode may be on the shorter side because it's really late. This evening I had some trouble just getting everything in order, and I just want to make sure I don't push myself too hard, because, like I said, I've got a lot of other stuff I work on. I wish I could do this full time, but even if I had the if I had the capability and the subscribers and the ad revenue to do so, which is never gonna happen. But even if I did, I couldn't right now because I'm focusing on the family. So, it's just kind of the way things go. But I'm gonna work hard, and maybe someday. But anyway, enough about my dreams either. Alright, moving on. I found a round resting room at the end of the corridor on the second floor. This is Sachiko again. I had a small table and 2 chairs, as we can see. There were also a shelf with a collection of old books. The coloring walls facing the inner yard was covered in windows. The camphor tree stood right in front of the windows, its branches partially blocking the light. I sat down on one of the chairs and gazed outside. I thought about what I should do next. The sun rays filtered through the leaves gave the chair and table in the room a pleasant warmth. I felt somewhat drowsy looking at all the greenery swaying in the wind. Oh man, see, if I were feeling drowsy and I was seeing that and the temperature was right, I would just go outside and lay in the grass and probably get bit by something, but it'd still be fun. Okay. That's rare. Oh, it's another memory. The bell signaled the end of lunchtime. Some of the boys dashed out of the classroom to secure themselves a place to play in the athletics field. The sound of shuffling footsteps and various voices filled the area around me. Managing to finish my pack of milk before the bell stopped ringing, I tore off the part holding it together and folded it into a neat rectangle. Nice! Being nice and diligent. Once I was finished, I put it into the green case next to the podium. The case for the other tableware seemed to have already been cleaned up. I picked up the green case and left the classroom, intending to carry it to the storage room. Playing. I lowered the case, placing it next to a whole bunch of similarly green cases from other classes. As I left the dark storage room, I glanced out the window and spotted several students already playing ball in the athletics field. The normally popular basketball court seemed to have been taken over by the older class. I turned away and continued to the backyard. See, I loved baseball. I was terrible at sports. I never would really play them because it was hard for me. I had asthma, but I never got diagnosed, so I just it was just terrible for running in general. And then I also just never I was never very good, so I never was on any teams or anything, but I love watching baseball to this day. And it was the first sport I played. I played the little leagues kind of stuff, with the kids, until it was getting too competitive for me and I just couldn't keep up. Then lacrosse later in high school. Anyway, the backyard between the fourth wing and the big concrete wall was about as poorly lit as a storage room, but at least it allowed me to distance myself from the noise of the other students. Oh, hello. However, as I turned the corner beyond the fourth wing, I saw someone. She doesn't look very happy, Takiko. The silhouette was crouched over a patch of grass, apparently watering it. What are you doing? Ah! Sachi! Takiko turned around, her twin tails dancing in the wind. That's a cute nickname, actually. I sat down next to her in my usual spot in the emergency stairs. I came to water your birthday present. Is that so? It's always damp here, so I don't think it needs much watering. You're never in your classroom during lunch. Do you always come here? Wow, my voice just went away. Do you always come here? Yes. I opened up my paperback and took out the bookmark. Oh, yeah, that was cute. Takiko sat down next to me and spent a few moments staring at the page I was reading, but soon got tired of it and turned away. She then picked up a sketchbook that was lying on the stairs and began drawing something with a brown pencil. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The scribbling of the pencil was the only sound in the backyard for a while. What are you drawing? Your present. You told me I couldn't pluck it, so I figured I'd draw it. I see. You know, our classical Japanese teacher is terrible. I kept raising my hand, but he never asked me anything. Earlier today, I tried raising my hand to answer a question and no one in class had any clue about, and he still ignored me. This is classical you're not real syndrome. Why do you think that is? Maybe he hates you because you keep sleeping in class. And your voice is always too loud. I can't help my voice. But I guess I was right. Dang. And there's a math teacher who only ever asks me what's something when I don't know the answer. Besides, you're terrible at classical Japanese. He probably doesn't let you speak because he doesn't want you to embarrass yourself. Ouch. I'll get the great marks on the next test and show him. Good luck. Sachi, can you teach me after school? I can, but what about your club? The boys' basketball and volleyball teams are using the gym today, so I don't have any practice. I'll do some running tonight, but that's about it. I see. I turned a page. The sound of fervent scribbling resumed. I'm done! She placed the pencil on the stairs and handed out her sketchbook in front of me. A four-leaf clover extended across the entire page, each of its leaves appearing a bit different. Clover again! That art gallery and everything. Some of the leaves were drawn with wavy lines, while others looked jagged. Both versions was quite pleasing to the eye, despite them being drawn with a relatively few lines. Exactly what kind of profession are you aiming for? Well... Her big eyes grew round as she let out a thoughtful grunting sound. I like drawing and creating things, so something along those lines. It's not very specific. Oh, there was the bell. It's the bell. Let's go. As I stood up and brushed the dust off my skirt, Takiko rolled along the ground to stop behind me. What are you doing? After school... Okay, that was a little abrupt. Upon turning the corner, I saw Takiko on all fours. What are you doing? Oh! Takiko turned her head over her shoulder and waved at me. I was looking at the four-leaf clover. Do you want to come here during every break? My classes are over. I came here to read a book for a while before going home. I sat down the stairs, opened the book, and took out the bookmark. I'd love to know what she's reading. Here it is! As soon as she found it, she unzipped her bag and she had left in the shadow of the stairs and took out her equipment. She entered the building holding a yellow bucket, filled it up with water, then came back out. Alrighty! She sat down next to me. Splash. She stuck her brush into the water. Green and yellow. She squeezed the paint tubes covering the palette in colors. Is that was that what it calls it? It's a color palette or palette? Yeah, I think it's called palette. I feel like it's not colorful enough. I turned the page. Just use some other colors then. I see. I turned a page. I heard the sound of a brush grinding across the canvas. The damp, gloomy backyard regained its usual silence. The only things I could hear were the sound of turning pages as I read, and the cries of the cicadas in the distance. I'm surprised. Cicadas are here, and they're just like you can't miss them. They're freaking loud. They're actually quieter tonight though, because I think it's a little colder. I'm done. What do you think? What do you think? She placed a brush on the stairs and held out the sketchbook in front of me. That's one colorful clover. I'm avant-garde. Does it have any meaning? Well, she stuck her head out and considered the canvas herself. She then pointed at the blue leaf. This blue leaf represents the sprout. It's the youngest form of the four. The yellow one is the young leaf that still has yet to fully form. The green one, well, as you can no doubt tell yourself, is just a normal leaf in its prime. And lastly, the red one is the leaf at the very end of its life. She pointed at the green and red leaves in order. I'm impressed you managed to come up with that on the spot. I passed a qualification exam for colors the other day. You can make any color you want by mixing the four I used with these leaves. For these leaves. Takiko's palette was a difficult to describe mess of a whole array of colors mixed together. Almost like she couldn't decide which one to pick right until the very end. Well, that sounds like Takiko. Okay, now it was position. So we were like Sachiko for a second, then we had the memory of Sachiko and Takiko. Or was that a dream? Because she fell asleep. Now we're Narasaki again. At the end of the second floor corridor, there is a cylinder-shaped lounge with a small table, 2 chairs, and a bookshelf in it. A set of large windows line the wall, welcoming the serene afternoon light. Excuse me. I think Takiko's voice is straining me today. I spotted Sachiko sleeping at the table, using her elbows as a pillow. I silently pulled out the other chair and careful not to wake her. That's the weirdest thing. Sometimes, like during the day, I can find myself in a spot. Probably usually not a table actually. It's usually like laying down like on a floor or on a pillow. But even more often, it's like just on my arms, and I'll pass out so fast. But yet, when I lay down in my really comfortable bed with my awesome pillow, it can take me forever to get to sleep. It's the freaking worst. Okay, so I have to wake her. Ooh, the chair creaked as I lowered myself in it, but it didn't seem to disturb her. Sachiko's shoulders rhythmically moved up and down, but other than that, she remained motionless. Her thin and glossy hair, succumbing to the pull of gravity, covered her face. It swayed ever so slightly in the soft breeze, glimmering in the afternoon light. I realized the collar of my coat got crooked as I sat down. Remembering that I had a doll in my pocket, I took it out and placed it on the table. It had been preserved well, given its age. I tried brushing off a dirty spot on its cheek with a finger, but it didn't work. Suddenly, I heard some footsteps from behind. Looking up, I saw Nanae's aunt in the other end of the corridor. That's Lily, right? She seemed to have noticed me as well and made a light bow. Hello! She came over to my chair carrying a basket full of laundry. Hello. The weather is certainly nice today. Neither too cold nor too hot. A perfect day for an afternoon nap if there ever was one. How about joining us? An enticing proposal, but I must refuse. If Nana found us, I wouldn't hear the end of it. That's too bad. Lily made a warm smile, then shifted her gaze to the doll on the table. Is this yours? Yeah. It looks quite old. Switching the laundry basket to her other hand, Lily considered the doll with a curious eye. I held it up in front of her. She took it with one free hand. Is it handmade? Spots of dirt aside, it appears quite well crafted. I've had it since my childhood. You could say it's somewhat special to me. Ah, so it's something important to you. Lily inspected the doll for any other patches of dirt and tear marks. I could fix it up for you if you want. Really? Of course. It's not like our own antiques receive no refurbishing. We have a contract with a company that specializes in these things, and I myself can handle some of the simpler items. Lily answers me with a smile. Fixing your doll is not that difficult compared to what I usually do anyway. In that case, I definitely appreciate it. Alright, Lily placed the doll in her laundry basket. She then pulled out a sheet from it. Use this if you're planning to sleep. Thank you. It was hanging in the sun just a few minutes ago, so it should feel quite pleasant. I might end up being unable to sleep at night because of it, though. Lily chuckled. That wouldn't be good. Sleep is the best medicine, or however the saying goes. She nodded to herself a few times. I imagine a mansion like this must have a ghost story or two. That's a sneaky look right there. Absolutely. Do you like these kinds of stories? I'm quite a fan. In that case, I can tell you one, if you want. Sounds great. Oh, hello. Lily nodded, placing the basket on the floor and lowering herself to the empty chair. Wait, there were two chairs. Sachiko sleeping in one, and I thought Narasaki took great care to sit in the other one. So... Ah! I dropped something. I'm sorry. I'm playing with something in my hand. But still, I'm calling shenanigans here. How are there two chairs but three people in chairs at the same time? That seems fishy. It's about a woman that used to live here quite some while ago. Well, that's an interesting way to say it. She was different from most people. You could say she had an unusually sharp intuition. For example, look at this scar. I got it when I was hit by a bike. Lily rolled up her sleeve and showed her elbow to me. Does someone else have a scar like that? I could make out a scar that must have needed at least 6 stitches. Dang. It was quite an old wound. I doubt anyone would have even noticed the scar had she not pointed it out. I spoke to that woman on the phone the day before, and she told me to be careful of bikes. She would always warn you about things out of nowhere, but her premonitions almost always turned out to be true. Why did you get hurt then? Lily smiled. I wasn't planning on going out that day, but I was bored and napped through half the day, and by the time I awoke, I'd already forgotten about the warning. I figured it was the perfect time to take out the trash, and as soon as I stepped outside, I was hit by the bike. She leaned to the left, phantoming how she got hit. So that person could predict the future. I'm not sure. In my experience, there were only 2 occasions when she predicted something with such accuracy, so I probably wouldn't go so far as to say she could read the future. On the other hand, there were several cases that made me think she had an unbelievably good instincts. It felt more like she was sensitive to the supernatural. One time while working here, I figured I'd skip out of cleaning duty and was sleeping in a storage room when I woke up with some really bad sleep paralysis. Ooh, never had that before, but my grandma told me stories about it. It's terrible. I couldn't move at all. I was half panicky when I suddenly heard someone's footsteps outside, along with the voices of 2 people. However, my mouth wouldn't move, so I couldn't call for help either. As I was praying for someone to notice me, I heard one of the 2 draw closer to the storage room, opening its door. It was her again. I pleaded for help with my gaze, but when she saw me... Whoa, what? All she did was snort. Whoa, what? That's weird. Why did it fade out like that? As if making fun of me. Lily recounted the story with a smile on her own face. She then closed the door and left. The sleep process subsided on its own later. I remember looking all over the place to find and give her a piece of my mind. I was furious she didn't rescue me. Lily raised her fist in an expression of fitful anger, but soon lowered it and smiled. At any rate, I thought she had special powers. How about you? Do you believe in such things? That sounds like a terrible story. I've had no first-hand experience with stuff like that, so I don't have much to say. I see, Lily continued in a slightly hushed tone. A lot of hotels and inns started popping up after the war, you know, for tourists and such. However, most of them went bankrupt as soon as the real estate bubble burst. With no funds to even raise the buildings, they ended up abandoned. It had been said since olden times that this area maintained strong ties with the supernatural. But with a convenient ghost mansion around, the stories pertaining to all the things that might live inside were completely out of control. There are dozens of such stories. I honestly can't even remember them all. Anyway, this woman in question could see those kinds of things, so she had it rough. And her senses grew even keener after one particular incident. At first, only she could hear the sounds at night. At the time, she was already working and lodging at the mansion. Anyway, once she said she could hear water dripping from the tap, despite sleeping in the wing furthest away from the kitchen. The tap here was pretty loose, so you had to close it really tightly. With that in mind, she climbed up out of bed and went to the kitchen to see what was up. Still half asleep, she tried to ring the tap handle even harder, but it didn't help. Then she suddenly heard something near her ear that sounded vaguely like the laugh of a child. Oh, this is getting creepy. She swiftly spun around, but there was no one there. Figuring it was only her imagination, she returned to bed. But as soon as she began to doze off, she heard some voices again. This time it was a bunch of children laughing. She jumped out of bed. Once again, there was no one there. Assuming it was just a bad dream she had after an unpleasant experience with the tap, she lay back on bed, only for the sound of dripping water to start up again. She had a bad feeling about it, but still considered the possibility of her previous experience with the tap was no more than a dream. In the end, she got up and went to the kitchen again. As she closed the handle again, she heard the voice again. Oh! Oh, what? I just had the worst chills up my back. Holy crap! That came out of nowhere. Oh, fetch, man. Oh, why is this so creepy? However, she didn't turn around. I think part of it is because it was interrupting its own lines right there. Instead, she focused on something that she saw at the corner of her eye. It was not behind, but below her. She slowly looked down to see a child looking at her. Oh, fetch. The child turned its shadowy face to her, and after conceding that they had been found, suddenly dashed towards the kitchen wall and vanished beyond it. Well, was that scary? She leaned against the table on her elbows and took a good look at my face. You know what? Scary story aside, the effects that they just pulled off there were freaking awesome. And I am still scared, because that really, oh my gosh. Maybe it's because I've read so many visual novels, and like, even the shocking moments like we had on Monday, if you watch my Muffalo series, even they have kind of a lead up to them, you know? Like, I've never had a line truly be that interrupted before. The closest is Doki Doki Literature Club when he opens the door into Sayori's room. But even then, that for some reason, that was far more abrupt. Because, like I said, I feel like it was still writing more sentences out. Like, anyway, like... yeah. She heard the voice again. This time it was clear as day. Like, I was in the middle of reading, like, this time it was as clear as day, and it jumped to that. Fetch, man. Fetch, man. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was pretty creepy. Right. She nodded to herself with a satisfied smile. Want to hear what happened next? Yeah, what happened next? So, she ended up changing rooms, felt the presence of children in her new place as well. After that, she started seeing odd things all over the mansion. I saw her run into them multiple times myself. This one time, she suddenly stopped in place while we were climbing the stairs. When I asked her what was wrong, she told me she saw something in the mirror that shouldn't have been there. We had a big mirror on the second floor and I gave it a glance, but it looked perfectly normal to me. All I could see reflected in it were the two of us. I asked her if she was tired and played it for laughs at the time, but it kept happening, so I figured I might as well try researching the history of the mansion a bit. I already knew the place used to be a sanatorium. I told you about the Fujisaki family, right? Well, we knew even before they refurbished the place. The building had been purified by Shinto priests, and never a hospital or a site for a graveyard either. Besides, this area saw plenty of battle during the war, so you'd expect all the weird things to happen there and not all over here in the secluded mansion. Anyway, I figured to dig a bit deeper, using the records as a study in the library next door. Ugh. Oh, that's right. The library over there actually used to belong to another building. It fell apart before we could do anything about it, so we only ended up getting the library. It's actually even older than this mansion. Anyway, I also found some black and white photos from that place that was used as a sanatorium. I showed the pictures to my friend, and then she pointed to a few people, telling me she actually saw them here in the mansion. Lily stole a glance at me. What happened after that? Well, we assumed those people must have been ghosts or something, so we called the priest and had him purify the place. We used holy salt to place charms on the doors and the walls and all that jazz. There might still be some left. Want me to look for them? I figured it wouldn't have been too much fun to see them, so I declined. I'd rather see those pictures myself. Anyway, after that, she stopped telling her weird stories to me. I was relieved, thinking we were finally done with it. But one day, and ironically enough, in this exact place. Oh, that's always how they go, right? Always bring it round right to where you are. Oh, fetch those voices in my head now. I was walking down the corridor when I heard some voices. Thinking that someone was having a conversation, I continued walking and ran into her. But there was no one else. She just stood there, chuckling all by herself. When I asked her what she was doing, she answered that it was nothing. It felt weird, so I didn't back down. Who were you talking to? I asked her. She finally told me that those people from the pictures didn't disappear after the purification. And that after talking to them, she found out they weren't bad people at all. She didn't want us to worry anymore, so she kept silent about it. No one else, of course, saw or felt anything, so it could have gone by unnoticed, but I think she wanted someone to confess to. Even after that, I saw her talking to herself on multiple occasions. One time, when we were folding the sheets, she suddenly looked up at the ceiling and started following something with her eyes. When I asked her what it was, she told me she saw a butterfly. But I couldn't see anything, no matter where I looked. It also happened on a cold winter day, so that didn't make any sense for a butterfly to be there. She said it was probably from another world. According to her, it was a beautiful blue butterfly. Okay, from the other world. So maybe it is a two worlds thing. Like, there are these two, like, the parallel worlds, and they're kind of meshing together over this spot. After that, she began talking to herself a lot less frequently. Instead, she started seeing butterflies everywhere. I realized how she would almost always stare upward whenever we roamed the corridors together. She even said she wanted to try and catch one. Anyway, one day she had to clean the guest room. I was assigned to clean the windows in the corridor, but as I was working, I suddenly heard a loud noise from the sound of room she was cleaning. I rushed inside to find it completely empty. The window was open, so I looked down thinking she might have fallen down or something. I didn't see anyone. But then I remembered we had a well down below, so... Oh man, that would be terrible. I called some people. We ended up going down the well with flashlights and everything, but found nothing. Only the dark water surface reflected our lights. We turned the place upside down looking for her, but never found her. Huh? Didn't that turn into a serious incident then? I assume the police were involved. Yeah. The police filed her as a missing person and kept looking. They even climbed down our well, but didn't find any clues. Anyway, she disappeared without a trace. Most of the people have heard stories about her, so they started saying that she was spirited away. Interesting. Now we're getting two parallel types of stories from the two different worlds, you could say. In Sachiko's, they talked about this one woman at least vanishing. And then in Takiko's world, they talked about like how the patients were like vanishing from their rooms. So like, yeah, we really might be looking at some kind of like unifying like worlds theory. Her parents looked everywhere for her, but ended up with no clues either. However, it's possible she's been around here all along. It's just that we couldn't see her. Okay, well, was it scary? Lily opened her eyes wide as she asked the question. More like creepy in an unsettling way. I suppose. You know, someone said that if we can't find the body, that means there's the chance she's still out there, alive and well. It's a possibility I can't deny. So you're saying we're better off not knowing? Well, there are things best left unknown, right? Besides, we don't even know whether she's seeing real ghosts or just had mental problems. On the other hand, she began acting particularly weird after seeing those old pictures. Perhaps it would have been best for her to just ignore that whole incident with the child, or whatever she saw on the first weird night. What do you think? Well, I imagine it'd be difficult not to pay attention to something as big as that. You're right, but I think it was at least an option. As I deliberated on whether part she was referring to exactly, her tone suddenly turned more cheerful. These kinds of stories are like Pandora's box. If no one ever opened them things before, how would they know that hope would be the last thing remaining on the bottom? However, some theories claim that you could also know the future through it. Really? Still, doesn't really change my example. I glanced at Sachiko, and Lily followed my gaze. What do you think? The light falling on Sachiko's hair had grown orange in hue. Oh, she was listening, huh? I suddenly heard another set of footsteps approaching from the direction of the corridor. Oh, snap. What a very modern phrase. Lily stood up and then I stormed into the serene space. What? What are you doing here? What about the laundry? Nana addressed Lily in somewhat hated tone. I wasn't skipping on work. I was telling our guests about the history of our mansion, that's all. I really hope you weren't those silly ghost stories again. Oh, not even close, right? I'm sorry for taking your time, but I truly appreciate the curious little story. Nana looked at Lily, then back to me. She finally heaved a deep sigh. Well, okay then. Lily picked up her laundry basket. Well, I'll be returning to work then. Jeez. Let's have another chat sometime, said Lily as she began to walk down the corridor. Sure. Well, see you around then. Nana followed after Lily. And Sachiko still just sleeping there? Okay, great. Got my pants scared off me. Goodness. Oh my gosh, we have another tips. Tips 2, second trip. Landscape immersion has been unlocked. Fascinating. Well, guess we should probably jump into that real quick, shouldn't we? We will save right here. Yes, we will overload. And go to the title. Because, you know, tips usually are very relevant for the time they put them in. So, and it's the first in tips section 2 we've ever seen. So that's very fascinating as well. Oh, man. Did these two ever actually know each other? Were they ever together for reals? It's like, it's so hard to know. Alright, so like tips 1, tips 2, second trip. Landscape immersion. It's the only one we have. So let's check this out. That one creepy story, man. Oh my gosh. I was on my way to Tokyo to pick up furniture for my mansion from a friend. Oh, okay. Is this from, like, Lily's perspective? I had 2 good friends in high school. One of them would donate her furniture to my place from time to time. She established herself as the president of a hotel business in the capital, being the most successful one out of the 3 of us. Yesterday, she told me over the phone how she decided to close a few of her hotels and sell off the land. According to her, the decision wasn't made due to the business struggling. In fact, she bought that land expecting its value to skyrocket so she could sell it off at a higher price. Long story short, she now has some extra furniture she didn't know what to do with. She sent a portion of the furniture to her older place and sold off some of the others at auction, but she still had a lot left and didn't feel like throwing everything away. Besides, donating them to someone was cheaper than disposal anyway. It made her remember that I ran an inn, so she decided to contact me. We both came from a small village in the mountains. Most of it consisted of rice paddy fields and traditional Japanese buildings with thatched roofs so you could rarely find anywhere in this day and age. Besides that, only lush green mountains surrounded the area. That's a part of Japan I want to go visit someday. It's also probably the part, like, I'd have the most difficult getting to and possibly face the most potential, like discontent. If there's anywhere you're going to find people who don't like tourists, it's going to be there. It was the very definition of the word countryside. As such, the majority of my childhood memories were of flowing rivers, singing birds, and the fresh smell of rice fields. I heard the chirping of birds as I got off the train, but I looked around trying to find them. I only saw tall poles with a speaker on top. Oh yeah. I descended the stairs thinking the people in the city were weird. My friend had always been obsessed with success, so she ended up choosing a famous university in the capital. At first, I was worried about her. As to why, well, there was never really anything about her that made her stand out in school. Even her grades were all average. I imagined city people as a competition-driven group who would do anything for money, so I wasn't sure how a country lamb like her could possibly survive in a sea of such sharks. However, she ended up being much more capable than I ever gave her credit for, and got as far as opening multiple hotels and inns all over the area all by herself. That's impressive. In retrospect, perhaps her ability not to stand out in the country was just another manifestation of her shrewdness in life. I never suspected her to have an interest in running businesses, although she was always one who'd collect money from us to pay for the bill whenever we went to eat out. She was never a part of any group of authority in school, like the student council or something similar, but now that I thought about it, she would always find ways to keep the discussion going once all the others had run out of ideas or energy. It was interesting how talent would sometimes manifest in the least expected places. And that's actually the trouble with like school systems and everything. It's like we've decided that there's a certain way, like testing, for instance, is a good way to show like intelligence and capability. However, it's really not in a lot of ways. Like my wife being a chemist is a great example. Like taking chemistry tests and doing chemistry in a lab are very, very different. Luckily, chemists get to actually practice in the lab as part of their education, but a lot of people who are going into other fields don't get that kind of practice or practicality. Even if they take an internship, it's very limited. So, like, never discount yourself. Like, just because people are book smart doesn't mean that they're going to be super successful. And just because you struggle doesn't mean you can't be super successful. It's all about like learning the right types of things and like pushing yourself, applying yourself, and it comes from grit more than it comes from smarts. Smarts are important. Going to school is important. It really can help you a lot, but it's all about how you apply that knowledge that really matters. Yeah. Although you could only ever notice that in retrospect. As for me, I remained in our hometown and still lived there. As I left the station, I climbed onto the back seats of the first taxi I spotted and told the driver the address of the hotel. The driver raised a white-gloved hand as a sign of understanding. I leaned back in my seat and recalled the last time I visited her hotel. She bought some ancient building with a bunch of old furniture and gave it a makeover. The result was the hotel. I wasn't sure if they'd fit my place, but I did have an eye for a few specific things. As such, I promised her to board the Shinkansen from Kansai to Tokyo the first thing the early morning the next day. I looked at the tall building I saw through the window. It was my third time in Tokyo. Most of the time I just head straight to the international airport by train, so it was pretty new for me to actually be driven through the city in a taxi. I could feel the driver staring at me through the rearview mirror, so I decided not to fidget too much. When I reached the hotel, I found her in the lobby. She was talking on the phone. She drew the phone away from her ear for a moment, and before I could open my mouth said, "If there's anything that piques your interest, put a sticker on it." Back at the train, I mentally ran through the multiple simulations of how our conversation would go, but it seemed like I was only wasting my time. But that was also like her. Following her instructions, I spent the rest of the time walking around and putting stickers on with my name on things I liked. Turning around, I saw all sorts of furniture with my stickers on them. It reminded me of the property seizure scene I once saw in a movie. Some of the things I wanted were already gone, but I still got my hands on quite a number of nice articles. One of the antiques I grew particularly fond of was a moss green one-seater sofa in English design. After about an hour, I returned to the lobby to look for my friend. I spotted her walking through the main entrance. She seemed to be on her way somewhere, accompanied by a person wearing an expensive suit. "You're already done?" "Yeah." "Did you find anything?" "I found quite a few things I could use. It was definitely worth the trip." "Glad to hear that." "Are you going somewhere?" "Yes, I have some urgent business to take care of. I don't think I'll be back by sunset." "I see. I'm sorry for having you come all this way, and it's okay. Work doesn't wait. I'll come another time to thank you for this." She made a warm smile upon hearing me say that. It was at least 3 times more dazzling than the one I remembered from our school days. We're actually going to pass by the station on our way. We could drop you off there if you want. That'd help me save some cash on the taxi." "Thanks. Also give you a chance to talk." I spotted a luxurious-looking black car parked on the side of the road as we left the hotel. We both climbed into the back seat. The interior smelled brand new. I love that smell. I looked out the window as the car began to move. It might have come from the country, but even I knew this was a luxurious German car that must have cost a fortune to buy and maintain. As I was wondering whether she'd be filling a purchase of this caliber under a taxable or non-taxable expenditure, she suddenly asked me how I felt about the city. It took me a few moments to realize the meaning of her question. "It's quite different from home. I was really surprised by the random birdsong speakers in the station." "Oh, those are for the visually handicapped." I gave her a confused look. "You might have noticed how they were all set up by the stairs." I reddened, realizing I had the wrong idea all along. "It's been a while since I've been home," she remarked, changing the subject upon noticing my distress. "That's interesting. I never would have thought of that. That's a really clever way to try and bring something kind of refreshing, but also signaling for people who are having hearing trouble." We spent a few minutes it took to get to the station discussing the country. As we reached our destination, I stepped out of the car and thanked her. I glanced at my watch as the car rolled away. I had nothing to do for the rest of the day. Oh, that's kind of sad. Heaving a sigh, I ventured into the Nakano shopping district with the intention of grabbing something for lunch. After walking around for a while, I found myself attracted to a melon bread shop and a ramen restaurant. However, I felt the melon bread alone would not be enough, while the ramen seemed like it was made using bland soy sauce for the base. Then I remembered how there was an excellent ramen shop in Ueno. I couldn't quite remember how to get there, but I had plenty of time to spare, so I hopped on a train to Nakano Station and headed to Uneno's general direction. And just wandering around. It's fun. I changed to the Yamanote line at Shinjuku. Gosh darn it, Juki? Where'd that come from? And reached my destination with far less difficulty than I expected. I was already past 1 o'clock, but I still managed to get to the shop without having to wait in line. With no one to talk to while I ate, I ended up reminiscing about the last time I'd been here. I ate here with the other one of those 2 friends I mentioned. At the time, she wanted to go to a nearby zoo. It was 2 o'clock when I left the restaurant. I had reserved a seat on the night train, but seeing how it was a weekday, I probably could have found an open seat on any random train at this hour. However, my original plan was to spend the night drinking with my friend while reminiscing about old days and use all my remaining energy to catch the last train and sleep until I was home. Aw, that actually got sad. Like, I had all these plans of catching up and then, oh, I got work, bye. I felt the need to use this pent-up energy. Besides, I was in a good mood after getting my hands on all that great furniture for free. I decided to go to the zoo. I thought it'd be empty at this hour, but I was wrong. There was a middle-aged man with a camera looking at birds. I also found an old man gazing at the elephants. I ran into a whole family at the Penguin Mountain. Each corner had at least one person strolling around. One man was drinking a beer in front of the bear cage. We have a tiny little aquarium that's like, it's just fun. I don't know. Like, looking at like tanks of fish is really interesting. And then they have this really cool like hands-on area with a koi fish pond and a ray pool where you can actually like place your hand in. You can like touch the rays as they get close. And they also have this really cool like, I would call it a petting zoo per se, but like they have like starfish and urchins that aren't sharp or spiny that you can like kind of touch. And they also have horseshoe crabs, which are the coolest animals in the freaking planet. It's really fun. And like initially getting in is like per ticket's like 30 or 40 bucks, but for like no. It's like $15 per person. But if you spend $40, you can get a year pass. So with it being only a 30-minute drive away, we just bought year passes for ourselves, and our boys get in for free because they're still pretty young. And so for $80, we get to go to this thing whenever we want. We've already gone at least like 30 times, which easily pays for the pass. And it's so cool. It gives the boys something fun to look at and like educational, and it's nice supporting like little things like that. So yeah, make sure you go to things like zoos and stuff. Like, it's one of those things that like it doesn't sound as fun, and then you get there and you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. Its cage, let's see, at first glance I didn't spot anything inside, so I stopped and began looking at the bear that was supposedly there. The cage was on the lower level compared to me, with some rocks, a lake, a large tree in the middle. I circled around the cage, but still couldn't find the bear. Perhaps the caretakers took it somewhere else, or it's probably eating. The bear might have needed a medical checkup, or had taught some tricks to entertain the audience, or maybe it needed to be washed at some other facility. I stole a glance at the man sitting on the bench drinking the beer. He was absent-mindedly gazing in my direction. I couldn't imagine what he was doing there in front of an empty cage. Although I figured he could have said the same thing about me. When I reached a small animal corner, I realized I was going through the zoo in the exact same order as before. There were hundreds of potential routes that one could have picked. I remembered how how adamant my friend was about seeing an anteater. Yeah, wow, that's a weird-looking word. It's just a weird-looking word. So we pretty much combed the entire place looking for it. I was following the exact same route now. I stood in front of the anteater's cage. I was still in the same place, a building separated from visitors by a glass wall. There's a sign with the word anteater. I keep wanting to say amphitheater, but it's anteater written on the white ink dangling in front of the cage. Found it, I said while I was looking at somewhere else. You did, she said cheerfully, hurrying to my side. Where is it? She lined up next to me. I don't think it's here right now. No way! This cannot be! She dropped her shoulders. When I asked her why she wanted to see it so much, she told me that its hands look cute when it tries to walk on its hind legs. She wanted to see the real thing ever since she saw it in a picture. And indeed, there was a picture of an anteater on its hind legs in front of the cage, too. It seems to do that when it's angry, I told her as I read the explanation. That's what's good about it. I very much doubted the anteater would have agreed with that. I pulled myself back to reality and gave the cage a good look. There was no sign of the anteater this time either. I felt like I could now understand her disappointment. Someone else came to the cage while I was standing still lingering in front of it. I decided to make it look like I was looking for an animal before I'd hastily leave. However, as I shook my head in front of the cage, a man walked up next to me and began taking pictures of it. Or of you. Confused, I peered into the cage again. But no matter where I looked, I still couldn't see any animals. Next, I looked at the man. Wearing a polo shirt, he seemed to be lost in his own world while taking pictures. I like polo shirts. Excuse me? Could you tell me what you're taking pictures of? I had to ask, otherwise this would have kept me up all night. Maybe there was something wrong with my head that made me unable to perceive anteaters in the real world. Well, that's an interesting thought. Besides, I hated the feeling of regret that came after letting certain opportunities slip past you. The man looked at me and made a friendly smile. I'm in need of some scenery pictures. I'm not here to photograph animals, he added. Scenery pictures? Still somewhat puzzled, I ended up parroting his words. I'm designing something that's supposed to recreate the world of animals living in their cages. It's called habitat reproduction, and I'm collecting samples for it right now. He stopped taking pictures and explained everything to me in a friendly manner. I see. It wasn't anything special after all. Now that I thought about it, being unable to see anteaters probably wasn't a very realistic disease anyway. You think? If that even warranted any thought. That's a miniature South American tropical rainforest inside that cage. Even the sounds and the temperatures are being emulated. Now that you mentioned it, the room was indeed unnaturally warm. I could even hear the sounds of monkeys and birds through the speakers. I see, I said, feeling impressed. Animals feel more at home this way. Then the audience, too, has a chance to learn more about actual tropical conditions. It's pretty elaborate. I'll pay more attention to the scenery from now on. You do that. I guarantee it'll be more fun that way. After parting from the man, I followed a suggestion and began scrutinizing the environment of the other cages. I thought they all had similar plants inside them, but as I took a closer look, I realized that almost every cage was something different. What surprised me was that none of them were merely models or imitations, but real, actual plants that the zoo staff must have been growing. I found a lot of plants I'd never seen before. I didn't realize it, but this place could have easily doubled as a botanical garden. They must have cared for their animals quite a bit. A branch quivered in the tall cage of the bird corner. I spotted a big owl. I turned to the signboard for help, but it listed a whole bunch of different predatory birds along with their illustrations, and I couldn't immediately find the one I'd just seen. The signboard had information about their names, natural habitats, and the method of their hunting. I stared into the round eyes of the bird. I had a feeling it was staring back at me. I wondered if it could remember its old forest. Although from the way it motionlessly stared at me, it didn't seem like it was having any such thoughts. Well, I thought about it. She was also quite interested in birds. Back when we lived together in that mansion up in the mountains, we would observe different types every season. She would find all sorts of birds and tell me their names. I remembered how we'd look for them in the forest after hearing their chirping. During one of our walks, I asked her the names of every single bird we spotted. She ended up mentioning over 30 species. I myself only recognized 2 or 3. But I could still remember over half the names she kept repeating. I pulled myself back to reality again. The owl was still staring at me. I guess the zoo helped me remember the past, at least. Huh. So who was that? Yeah, I have no idea who that was to be. Like, it's someone from the inn. Like, I think it was Lily still, but I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, well, that brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for being here today. Once again, didn't really learn a whole lot, but holy crap, was that moment creepy. I literally... Whew, like today's a hot day. It made me feel cold. It was just... I don't know, man. I just got sucked into it, and it just really hit me right in the spine. So kudos to the writers and the sound editors there. They made it really creepy and really sucked me in. Yeah, I wonder if we're gonna get like this. The story is like, it's very sweet and serene, but it has these touches of horror in it that are just so interesting, especially because of the juxtaposition of having like sweet, lovely tales and then something terrifying. It's really cool to see, and it's an interesting style of reading and storytelling. I don't know if I've ever seen this combination before, at least not in such a way. So, you know, once again, this is one of the more interesting visual novels I've ever come across. I'm really happy I got to play it. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for spending your time with me on the channel, and that you get to enjoy such fun rides as SeaBed with me. I'm looking forward to many other future visual novels to go through with you, and I hope you guys stick around. So until the next video you're watching me, or whatever you see me in next, I'll see you there.